in that next session, because it's one, we've been able to connect a lot with Julia and just kind of have an ongoing dialogue. And she's someone that I can lean on for insights and kind of just like her perspective on how you can use social media, but also just the power of community to really raise more money for your mission. So I'm super excited to invite Julia Campbell with J. Campbell Social Marketing. She works with nonprofits a lot, and I'm sure she'll share more about that. But Julia, thanks for joining us. You're welcome to share a screen if you want to share some slides with our audience, but let's dive in.
Okay. Now you're going to have to tell me how to share the screen.
Oh yeah.
Okay, it's up at the top, right? I know.
Yeah.
This is my life, are the tech fails and not knowing how to use technology. But thank you so much, Noah, for having me. I've actually really enjoyed watching the sessions. I've learned a lot. I wrote copious notes during Steven's session. And I've done a polar plunge. I haven't done the polar bear plunge, but I did the polar plunge for Down syndrome research. But to be fair, I did it when I lived in Virginia, so it was kind of cheating. So it wasn't like
it's a little different than Massachusetts.
It's 19 degrees outside right now, so I'm not going to do the polar plunge right now.
Yeah.
So I don't know how to share my screen. You're going to have to walk me through it.
No, it's all right. You so there should be on the bar that you have where there's the volume and video. There should be a share button. And you should be able to.
Oh yeah, it would say share screen. Okay, so I'm gonna share some slides that I have. Can you see my slides?
Yep, perfect. We're in.
So I have maybe 20, 25 slides, because I like to share a lot of examples of what I'm talking about as I'm talking about it. But I did want this to be a conversation. If you have questions, if people have questions. And I'll try to stay as true to the time as I can. But I think this is really great. So thanks for having me. So just a little bit about me. I mean, I'm not going to talk too much about myself, but if there's any returned Peace Corps volunteers in the house, there always are when you get a bunch of nonprofit professionals together. Shout out to you. I've also been in the shoes of a one-person development marketing shop, which I know you have been, Noah, and I know a lot of people in the audience have been, so I completely understand what you're going through. And I'm just really passionate about digital storytelling, and I'm really passionate about the ways to use it to augment everything we've been talking about today, especially donor retention, donor acquisition, building communities, and getting people really excited and invested and engaged with your mission and what you're doing. So a lot has been said about the power of storytelling. I really, I've given entire hour-long keynotes about this, but I think we get it, right? We understand that human brains are wired to remember stories, to tell stories. It's the way we connect with people. It's the way we help process all of the information that we have coming at us. And I really firmly believe that fundraisers need to become storytellers. And that doesn't mean you have to become J.K. Rowling. It doesn't mean you have to write the great American novel. It just means you have to be able to put your mission and your vision into a succinct narrative, because what you want to create, and Stephen actually talked about this in one of the reasons, one of the drivers that retain donors, is people want to feel a shared identity with a cause and with a mission that they support. So Seth Godin is one of my ultimate marketing gurus, and I always quote him in my presentations, but he said something that really stuck with me. And I think all nonprofits in their fundraising and marketing work, they should be aiming for anytime they post something or send something out or tell a story, for me as the donor to say, oh yeah, people like me, I do things like this. This is me. These are my people. This is what I believe in. I'm part of something. I'm part of building something bigger than myself. So digital storytelling, it's very trendy. It's, it's kind of intimidating. People don't think that they can do it. They think they have to have these huge promotional budgets. They have to hire, nothing against hiring professional photographers. I love them, and videographers, but you just to tell an authentic story, you don't have to have a huge budget. You do have to have four main elements. You have to grab my attention, and we're going to show some examples of how to do that. You have to get me to feel something, because simply just making me smile or having me say, oh, that's really nice, that's not going to cut it. You also have to ask me to do something. So I know for our purposes today, we're talking about fundraising, we're talking about community-driven fundraising, but a lot of the nonprofits I work with, sometimes that could be sign a petition, it could be call a legislator, it could be come to an event. So you just need to get me to feel powerful enough that I'm going to take an action. And then also you really want to use storytelling to build that community. Hugely, hugely important. And one of the drivers, I was pleased but not surprised to see, it's one of the drivers in donor retention, is creating that shared identity with the organization. So how do you really grab attention? So I took a quick screenshot of a campaign that I saw from DePaul University, and I didn't want to play video today or anything because I knew it would probably mess up and it wouldn't work. But if you go to Twitter, it's just happened yesterday, the last couple of days, they are having this scavenger hunt. And the key with this is that it's colorful, it's video, it grabs attention. And so what Mari Smith says, Mari Smith is a Facebook marketing guru. She says what you really want to do with your content in order to reach people, in order to in fact, get in front of them to even share your story, is you really have to make something thumb stopping. You have to stop the scroll, we call it. And that's really where great visuals come in, or a great layout. And the reason, and actually I really do love the layout of CauseVox pages, because you're sending a signal to your donors that you care about design, that you care about visuals, you care about video, you care about photos, because that is the way you're going to grab attention. You're not going to grab attention simply with just text. You also need to think about, when you're thinking about storytelling to really compel and entice your donors and pique curiosity, what's unexpected, right? So what is timely? What is provocative? Now, the Be Real campaign does a fantastic job storytelling, because they take what is normally seen on Instagram, which are airbrushed perfect photos of celebrities or people doing amazing things, and they never show their flaws and they never show the real side of themselves on Instagram. A lot of people, they have this campaign around body positivity, and they're kind of taking Instagram and flipping the script, and that is helping them attract attention, and that's helping get these stories that they're trying to showcase in front of a greater number of people. So you need to always be thinking like a journalist, especially if you're one of those people that's a development person and a marketing person. But for anything that you're doing in fundraising, if you can't get my attention, then you can't ask me effectively to participate. So trying to just be a little bit different. Think about the Wonder Woman poop emojis. Okay. So, maybe it's not tasteful, maybe it's not your style, but it certainly will grab your attention and make you pay attention to the campaign. Think about what can you do to kind of flip the script on what is expected of you. And, unfortunately, fortunately, I don't think it's a matter of pros and cons. We are so used to the plain old story of client X came to us and we are the hero, we are the savior, and we saved them, and then they walked away and their story is tied up in a glorious bow. That story, I think, has its place and is important. But when we're talking about digital fundraising, or we're talking about cutting through all of the noise and the news feed online, especially with peer-to-peer fundraising, we really need to think about how we can tell a different story, how we can be unexpected. Also, just making me feel something. Getting me to feel something is hugely important. And I know that a lot of the people participating in the summit today have talked about knowing your audience, knowing your donors, because I keep going back to those drivers, the drivers of donor retention. There are some frameworks there, but your donors are very different from the nonprofit down the street, from the nonprofit across the nation. And you need to really understand what compels them, and really why they're participating with your organization. And if you don't know, this is a great opportunity to ask them. Like CCAN said, they do a lot of, not necessarily official surveying, but they talk to their donors. They talk to people that are running the Polar Bear Plunge, and they ask them what matters to them and how can we keep you participating and why did you get involved? So doing that kind of preliminary market research, if you will, like very, low key, is very important. You want to figure out your top 5 reasons that donors support your organization. And then you want to craft stories around each of those reasons. So for Feeding America, what I really like that they do, especially on digital, is they let people tell their stories themselves. So they feature a great photo, they feature a quote, and they have a call to action, visit the link in our profile. This is on Instagram. The Cabrera School for Girls, same thing. So you don't have to be a copywriter. You don't have to be a novelist. You don't even have to have a journalism degree. You can let your constituents, your stakeholders, your beneficiaries really tell the story for you. But you have to make me feel something as the donor. You have to make me excited and proud to participate in what you're doing. Rosie's Place is a small organization where I live in Boston, and they really do a great job on social media especially. And all of these are going to be social media examples, because I completely think direct mail is important, but I know we're talking about community-driven peer-to-peer fundraising today, but also using and leveraging these channels for what they're meant to do. Social media is meant to be a storytelling channel. It was never meant to be a channel for advertising and promotions. Of course, we can discuss whether or not it's become that way, but the brands and businesses and organizations that succeed do a fantastic job showcasing their mission and their stories, and doing it in kind of an authentic way. So Boston Children's Hospital, adding emojis. Look at this. This post looks like it could be from a good friend of mine. It fits seamlessly into what I'm already doing, and it kind of grabs my attention and gets me to participate, because I want to say happy birthday, even though I don't know Oliver at all. So think about ways that you can fit your message seamlessly into the channels that your donors are already using. Sharing video, of course, works really well. And I wanted to showcase some examples from smaller organizations, like the Greater Boston Food Bank is an organization where I live, and they did a whole video storytelling campaign, shared it on social media, piqued my interest with that one little quote. It's not so much how you fall, it's how you get back up. And then you, of course, want to read the story, listen to the story about Dan. Denver Rescue Mission, another one. And, if you think that my slides, they're all screenshots, you should see my desktop, and you should see the back end of my phone, all screenshots of nonprofits that are, I think, doing exemplary work. So Denver Rescue Mission, they never use professional photographers, only on their website, because their website, of course, it's all about a symbol. It's all about the face that you're portraying, to the world. But they just tell these authentic stories about the people that they serve every single day. Once again, you can just use a quote. A quote can tell a story. A quote and a fantastic photo can tell your story for you. It does not have to be the hero's journey. It doesn't have to be Luke Skywalker, Harry Potter, The Hunger Games. It really can just be a snippet, a piece of the puzzle. And what you're doing on social media especially, but what you're encouraging your donors to experience, you want them to kind of see the pieces of the puzzle and put it together into that bigger narrative. So you don't have to show them every single piece of your story. You don't have to tell them every single little detail of every person you helped and every program that you run and every initiative. Everything that you communicate with your donors should be like kind of like building blocks and connecting the dots for them so they can actually make their own connections and discern, they can interpret a little bit about what they want to interpret. You don't want to be shoving a lot of your information, down their throat. Road Scholar also does a fantastic job telling the stories of the people that go through their travel, that go through their programs. Okay, so the number 3 thing you want to do, you've grabbed my attention. You have hopefully piqued my interest. I'm a little bit interested, and now I really want to know what to do next. You've kind of heightened my emotion, whether that's making me inspired, whether that's making me angry at some kind of injustice. You've gotten me, you've reached me, you've got me on board. Now, what do you want me to do? This is where I think a lot of fundraising campaigns fail. So I've watched a lot of nonprofit videos, and some of them are really great and some of them are not so great. But the ones that are really great, I would even say a majority of those don't ask me to do anything. They just have the main page of the website, or it's very vague. There's not a specific action, but if there is an action, it's not as specific as it should be. So asking people for a very specific action and even adding a number amount to a donation ask can work really well. Okay, I wanted to go back to this one. So this is a St. Baldrick's Foundation, and they do this really well. This is on Instagram. They found that people suffer from decision fatigue. And this, we all suffer from decision fatigue. We all suffer from at the end of the day, you've made so many decisions about where to spend your attention that you're just completely spent and you just want to sit and watch The Real Housewives, or maybe that's just me. But I think that understanding the sheer amount of information that is thrown at us every day and the amount of decisions that we have to make, knocking down barriers to giving as much as you can, especially when you're telling me this great story, you're showing me this great visual, you're getting me excited, you're getting me interested, you're getting me on board. And then you say, go to our donation page. Okay. That used to work. I think now we actually need to be even more specific. We need to talk about where the money is specifically going and give a suggested donation amount. Now, actually, no, we should talk about this after, because I would be interested to know data and research around the efficacy and if giving a dollar amount increases conversion rates, because I actually don't know that. I just know from experience, the clients that I've talked to and that I've helped, it really works. It really works to get more donations, especially when you're running a peer-to-peer campaign or you're running a campaign that has a time limit on it, to say, do you think that it works?
Yeah, I think one thing that we see, which we built into CosBox, is
Mm-hmm.
providing suggested donation tiers,
Yes.
help limit the weight of the decision. Whereas
Mm-hmm.
if you look at like traditional donation pages, or even if individuals are still using like PayPal, kind of like blanket
Oh, yep.
or whatnot, or just kind of like ugly forms where there's just submission boxes,
Mm-hmm.
you're leaving it up to like consideration. And so we always recommend our customers to use suggested tiers. 3 is like the magic number.
Yep.
But in addition to that, what I saw when I was doing fundraising is we would benchmark our donation levels and asks per donors, especially in email.
Yes.
Or like if someone gave $100 last time, we would ask them to give $125 this time. Or we would set our tiers in a way that it was like the lowest, like our average gift was the lowest amount, and then we'd increase, and allowed us to actually increase commitments, because no one wants to typically be like the cheapskate type thing.
Mm-hmm.
I think another thing too is just getting them to the donation page.
Yes.
Hey, like we're excited about you being a part of this. You can give $5 even. When they get to the donation page, they might give more than that, but you're committing them specifically. And I think that's what you're trying to say. And I think it makes
Yes.
sense.
That's a huge piece of it, because that's a question that I get pretty frequently. Oh, if I say only give $10, are they only going to give $10 if they could give 50? And I said, no, it's just about convincing them that they don't have to make that decision. It's kind of knocking down a barrier or an obstacle. For some reason around behavioral psychology, we love that decisions have already been made for us. So we're much more likely to click on that page if we think, oh, it's all going to be either filled out for us, or we don't have to think. But like you said, I haven't seen it dramatically decrease donations. I think that it just gets people to the page. It helps them understand. It also clarifies what you're there to do. So you're telling this great story, and we always assume that we're telling a great story, we're asking people in this flowery language to participate, and then we put a link. We always assume that people know what to do, and they really don't. We have to say, go to this page and make your donation. I think especially on social media, we have to spell things out for people. We have to make it easier. So I wouldn't say that it's easy, but I would definitely say it's simple principle. So the last point that I wanted to make is that storytelling and fundraising, the goal should be to build community, really build community. And we say it all the time. And I am just incredibly passionate, because what I used to do when I started my business, I used to just tell people 5 ways to get more likes on Facebook, 10 ways to get more followers on Twitter. And then I found that that's not the point. That's not what you're supposed to be doing. You really want to create this group of people who are passionate about what you do. And it's not going to be everybody, but the people that you get on board, and especially the people that are fundraising for you, those are your gold standard people. I mean, they're putting their reputations on the line by holding a fundraiser for you. And people often don't think that raising money on social media is that hard to sell. Oh, well, I can just put up a link, or I can just ask a bunch of my friends, or I can just do an Instagram story. 90% of people, I mean, this was a study that was done in 2011, but Stanford researchers found that 90% of people online do nothing. They don't do anything. They lurk. They're called lurkers. They watch and they view, maybe watch your video, maybe read your blog post, maybe read your post, but they don't actually take action. So to have a group of people that takes action, I think is amazing. You have to treasure those people. Some other ways to build community: you could have your peer-to-peer fundraisers do an Instagram takeover, or, I mean, I wouldn't say Facebook page takeover. Probably Instagram is the one I would go with, but you're giving them a platform, and then you're helping them reach new people, but you're also bringing in their followers to, sort of to your platform and your point of view. I really think, I love the idea of having your peer-to-peer fundraisers, or anyone in your community, share their unique perspective, doing a storytelling campaign, asking people for their perspective, their feedback, asking them what your cause means to them, but it has to be, of course, very low touch, and it has to be very easy to do. But this is how you create that long-term community that you can then, draw on for fundraising asks, and also draw on just for community participation, for sharing, for interaction, in the long run. So the last slide that I have is, of course, from Maya Angelou. And I think that this is super important when we talk about all the stages of the donor journey, or the person that's fundraising for you, the peer-to-peer, the community fundraiser journey. They are going to remember how you made them feel? Did you make them feel like an ATM? Did you send an impersonal thank you? Did you not send a thank you? Like, what was that statistic that Stephen had? 13% of donors were never thanked. I actually think it might be higher, but wow, that's still way too high. Or did you just feel kind of like a cog in the machine? You didn't feel like your donation was meaningful. You didn't feel like you contributed and pushed the needle on something that you cared about. So how you make people feel is hugely, hugely important in fundraising. So I think that's all I have for official slides. I don't know where we are with time, and I'm happy to answer questions. I'm happy to discuss any of these points.
Yeah, absolutely. I think one of the things that you mentioned too was about how do you actually get your community involved of helping to tell the story. We
Yeah.
get caught up some, and I do this too, where we're like, man, what should I do? And we sit down at our desk and you're like, I need to write a story. When
Right.
we kind of reach out or we engage others, they can help us tell the story too, because they're a part of the story. Your supporters are a part of the story.
Mm-hmm.
What was really interesting is we saw an organization that was doing DIY peer-to-peer, where they were, allowing their supporters to go out and raise money on their own. They started actually emailing out to their whole supporter base some of these campaigns to showcase, like, look what James is doing on our behalf of our organization. It's incredible. Like, he gets the mission. He's put our mission in his own words, but he's an incredible example of how you can also be a part of this. And so they were actually promoting their their supporters campaigns to help raise money for different campaigns.
And then I see that and I say, people like me do things like this. Not everyone's going to say that, but certain people will say that. They'll say to themselves, wow, James, that's so cool. That's something that I believe in. That's something I could easily do. It's sort of like how representation matters. Like when you see, for example, in my community, like there's all these women running for city council because like one woman ran and won. So everybody says, oh my gosh, I could do that too. So it completely matters when you see other people holding these fundraisers. It breaks down that barrier, even if they raise $50, even if they raise whatever it is, I think that normalizing it and making it seem like it's something that everybody is doing and that it's accessible to everybody is incredibly important.
Yeah. And I think it's just a quick summary from what I heard from you. And it's something we talk about a lot, is like attention is the most valuable currency in today's connected economy. And so how you capture attention, but then also how you steward attention when you have it is extremely important. And so it's not even just about capturing a donor's money or whatnot. It's like, how do you even get their attention? And then what do you do with that when you actually have that? And that's something we talk about. And you mentioned, always grateful to kind of have your perspective on really how do you connect people to your cause. And
I've come around on it, actually. I used to think, like Gary Vaynerchuk says, attention should be your only strategy. And I don't agree with that anymore. I think you have to have attention first, because if no one's paying attention, you can't get to that next step. But it's like you said, how are you stewarding that attention? And what are the steps you're taking? You don't want to be manipulative. You don't want to be clickbait. You don't want to be something that, you don't want to make promises you can't deliver on. But also, what are you doing to get the attention of the right people? So rather than just creating a big Super Bowl ad that 99% of people are going to ignore and spending, I don't know what it is, 30 seconds, $3 million for 30 seconds. I just made that completely up, but I think that's what it is. But focusing your message and knowing what's going to grab the attention of the right people. But also, having fun with it, being a little creative. So I think that's a larger discussion, and I love it. I think it's really interesting.
Yeah, and I think the organizations that will win going forward, and by win I mean like move their missions forward, are the ones that don't play into the strategies that are just about renting attention, and they look for the strategies where they're actually, earning attention and capturing that attention, because then you can actually maintain it and steward that. Thanks
Absolutely.
again for kind of
Sure.
providing these insights. Always grateful for your participation in the first ever fundraising summit.
Yay.
And so
This
I'm
is
grateful.
amazing. You must be exhausted.
Hey, we're just rolling through. And so I think what's great about it, though, is it's a concentrated effort where
Yeah.
you can take a step outside of kind of like even, you get so closed in when you're like heads down, blinders on, and being able to kind of free people up to take a minute to say, hey, I want to learn
Yeah.
from others. I want to see examples. I want to learn from thought leaders like yourself and Stephen and Brady's joining us later. And it's just
Great.
great to be able to kind of package that all together. And then,
Yes.
as I've mentioned a few times on this, we're going to we have someone taking detailed notes. So we're going to send you a document to everybody who's participating where you'll have notes from the entire session. You'll have the video recordings, but we know most people don't go back and watch the recording. So we were like, we're going to get a notes document where we can just kind of say, hey, here's some tidbits,
Yep.
here's some lessons. Hey, you can go watch this now or this part of the session. So incredibly grateful that you're a part of this. And definitely connect. You guys, you provide great resources as well. And so if
Thanks.
you're interested in
Thanks,
learning
Noah.
more about Julia's kind of thought leadership on this, feel free to check her out. But thank you so much,
Okay.
Julia. I'm going to take it back now
Thank you. Thanks,
and drive
Noah.
back. Thanks, Julia.
Thank you.